Welcome everybody to the next Rec Last Process video. We did it, we're in the last chapter. So this is your warning, this video will contain mild spoilers for the thick of the climax. But if you're all caught up and you're not worried about that, then welcome to the video. I have a surprise for you today. I managed to find writer Aaron with some free time, and so we had to sit down to watch the time lapse and record some voiceover for you. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the webcams to record properly, so I drew up a couple emotes to represent us. I hope you enjoy, and yeah, let's get to it. Introduce yourself, emote Aaron.
Well, as you said, my name is Aaron Walther. I love comic books. I like writing and self-publishing comic books through my website, secondthoughtcomics.com. And yeah, we've been working on Uncontrollable Reclass for a few years now, and we're finally coming up to the big conclusion. It's pretty. I don't know. It's pretty exciting to like have the end in your sights. You know, that's always a good feeling to have when you're working on a book.
It is. I don't know. It's scary for me. Maybe I'm always just blindsided by it every time. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of times you get so like your nose is just in the book, in the creative process so much, you know, that it's hard to really see the thing as a whole. Yeah, that's definitely something that I've learned, is particularly in doing webcomics, when you're doing something that you know, takes like years to produce, and then you're just kind of the thing exists just like page to page, week to week. And then when you're done and then you go back and you reread the whole thing kind of together, it's almost like seeing it for the first time. It's so different seeing it all in one piece.
Yeah, I keep like having this vision in my head of like somehow the book is like out there somewhere, and eventually there will be a book, but I can't link that with the fact that I'm currently drawing the book right now, and so my brain tends to be like, no, it's not good enough.
Yeah, well, that's what they say, you know, all art, no art is ever finished, it's just abandoned, you know?
Yep. Especially with webcomics, you got that deadline, it's got to be good enough.
Yeah, gotta hit those deadlines.
Yep. So this is chapter 12, page 11. This is the page where Urska is reveling in her newfound bigness, and everyone's like, oh no, she's got no clothes.
This is one of my favorite pages. I think we may have talked about this before, I don't remember where, but this scene, like right here, the climax of Urska getting huge and preparing to fight with the giant cat Smugly, that's like essentially what the entire graphic novel idea came out of. Like, we were just at a convention and we were talking about ideas, the things that you could do with like for a story, and it was all basically just around this point. Like, we just needed a story to get us to this point of a giant cat rampaging through the city, and then I think actually Urska came a little later, and that was added on after we were developing the characters.
Once we got the bullies in, we were like, wait, they're half animal. Does that mean that?
Yeah, that's a fun part of the creative process, is when like that perfect idea hits after you've been developing it, and it's just like, oh, it's all falling together.
Yeah, like, oh, this actually works.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, I do love this scene. It's silly, and it also has that in a creative in the creative aspect of it, it forced us to ask a lot of questions behind the scenes of like, okay, how do the powers work? Like, like Smugly gets big, but you know, she's just an animal. So if Urska gets big, like, you know, do her clothes grow with? Do we want to just do that? Like, because a lot of you'll see a lot of fiction, they'll just cut corners and just be like, it just, you know, people, you know, if they can make it something bigger, just everything about him gets bigger. You know, you see that like like in the Avengers, like Ant-Man and Giant Man, and they just like kind of get around it with like some made up
They're wearing a super suit with
yeah,
sciencey stuff.
exactly, yeah, some kind of whatever. So I thought it would just be funny to just have her she just gets big and all of her clothes rip off, and then that'll just be funny, you know.
Yeah, we could do that because she's covered in fur anyway. So
Exactly, yeah, because she's part bear.
But I
And
do
then
imagine that she like completely tore through her shirt, which is in my mind her brother's shirt, the brother who is in jail. And she's gonna be really pissed when she goes back to normal and finds out that it's completely ruined. But
yeah, exactly. That was we set that up as like a big there was a nice little visual cue where we saw the flashback and her brother's wearing the same shirt, and so that's like her connection to her brother.
Yeah, I love working in little things like that.
Yeah, we were also forced to ask ourselves the question of if the only reason that Smugly can't mind control them is that they're wearing tinfoil hats. You know, what happens if she gets big and she's not gonna have the tinfoil hat on anymore?
I think we thought
what do we
about
want to
this
do with
and then
that?
like forgot about it for years until I went to draw the scene again and was like, wait,
Yeah, it's like,
we
wait a
have a
minute, they're all
plot
wearing.
hole.
Yeah, this could potentially be a big plot hole. And I think it was just funny. I think it's a good idea. We didn't really address it in the story, like nobody says anything, and it's just a nice little visual gag that the tiny little tinfoil hat is just sitting on her ear.
I
And
think one
so
reader has caught it, and then it's just
yeah,
made my day.
yeah, they definitely, I saw somebody commented about that. But I think that's a funny way of, or like not just funny, but like a fun way of kind of getting around it being a potential plot hole, and just
Yeah.
be like, look, there's your answer. You don't have to read too much into it. You know, it's there. You know, I think it's good. You don't have to over explain it.
I love the balance that we've managed to strike between being silly but not too silly, like we're not talking down to the readers at all, which I think is really important for a kid's book.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've always said that, like a lot of like kids fiction, it can be hard to kind of strike that balance, because like when you're writing for kids fiction, you're always, I don't want to say always, but oftentimes you're almost second guessing everything. Like, is this going to work for kids? Is this going to make sense to kids? And for me, I usually just try to follow my instinct of just is this something that I would like? Because I think I have a generally, like, I was always, just as a kid, like I read a lot, you know, so I try to like balance it based off of that. But yeah, and it's just important to not talk down. Kids don't want to read things that are for kids a lot of times, you know.
Yeah, I remember thinking that, especially since like I don't know, I was one of the smart kids, so
Right,
like
right.
one of my huge fears was like A, being talked down to, and B, like acting to other people like I was talking down to them. Like I didn't want to be that kind of jerk who did that.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I do think that's certainly something that we both have strived for in the comic, and I think we pull it off. Like,
Yeah.
I think it works really well.
Yeah, I feel like you really found that balance in Zero's Heroes, and then kind of sliding into Reclass. It was kind of that same thing. You just only had to tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, it was definitely something I learned from doing Zero's Heroes, because when I was doing Zero's Heroes, I kind of had an attitude of, well, it's, if I'm self-publishing it and I'm putting it online, then I don't have to worry about anything, because it can just be whatever I want. There's no censor, there's no editor. I'm not having to please a publisher. And I kind of learned, I was like, yeah, you know, that's creatively very freeing, but also it can make for an awkward or inconsistent tone in your overall work, to just be like, you know, it's mostly all ages except for the few times when it's not, just because. And then it's like difficult to explain to people of like, well, you know, it's not really for kids, but you know, it's mostly appropriate except for occasionally it gets a little whatever. And
Yeah.
I think that was definitely something that I was a little more focused on, just because I'm a little more experienced in writing. So like when we came up with Reckless, there was a better like idea of like the tonally, like what I wanted to go for, and what we had talked about, like what we wanted it to be. And it was a little easier for me anyway, just writing it to just stay in that zone and not feel like I was worried about getting out of it, or feel like I had to do something that I wouldn't normally do to try and make it work. It just, everything about it just came really naturally.
Oh, nice.
So what do you so I'm watching this page here, and there's all of these different colors. Like I'm seeing the orange in the background and the green and yellow. How does that process work?
Well, there's a macro that I happened to find for Photoshop years ago. It's like the best $100 I've ever spent. Pelt has a flatting program that will do a lot of stuff for you. So you might have seen earlier, there's like tedious, like me selecting an area and then putting color there. And without that program, it's like that all the time. Fortunately, my inks are kind of tight enough with few enough holes that the macro can get pretty much all of them. But because it's a macro, it doesn't know what colors you want to use, so it kind of just like pukes out all of this stuff.
Oh, okay. And then you have to kind of go back and put the right color in.
Yes. But for flats, sometimes it's easier, like especially if two things are next to each other, but they're the same color, to just keep them different colors for the flats stage. And then I will duplicate that layer and change all the colors to what they're like really going to be at the end.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
But I've found that to make myself remember to change the colors to what they're really going to be, they have to be super obnoxious. Otherwise, I'm going to forget.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, otherwise it's easier for it to just kind of sneak by because it just looks like a natural color, even if it's not the one you actually wanted. Yeah,
Yep.
I get that.
I've learned that over the years. If it's not like right in front of me, super obvious, I'm going to miss it. So
yeah.
try to make my things as easy on myself as possible.
So how much of the time spent coloring is just deciding on like the flats color, just
Most
like
of
the
it.
color palette? Is
Honestly.
it?
Yeah, if it's not like the tedious separating all of the colors out, then it's a lot of color palette selecting. Of course, it's longer if you're in a new scene or a new environment that you haven't figured out before. This is the end of the book, and so as you can see on the right side of the screen, I have a color palette document that I've been picking from. And if I'm good and if I remember, like every time I make a new scene, I will plop down the colors in kind of a meaningful little picture for myself later to use them again. And this one, I kind of had decided on all the colors last chapter because they're in the same environment. So it was really only a matter of like deciding, okay, how much time do I want to have passed? Do I want to make the shadows deeper? What kind of sunlight am I going to do, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, after that, it's just
And a lot of shading.
a lot of shading. That's actually my favorite part, but
Yeah. Well, that's the part that, I mean, I have to assume that's the part that looks the most like painting, like,
yeah.
I
And it
don't,
gets very
you know what I mean? Like,
meditative.
yeah, because you can just sit there and like focus on the detail, and that's where it really starts to come to life, as the image. Yeah.
And here's the finished page with your awesome letters.
Is
I think it was really fun.
Yeah, no, I like this page a lot. I mean, like I said, it's funny actually looking at this page. It kind of it's got a lot of characters on it, and it's got a lot of the aspects of the book that I know we were the most excited about putting into the comic, like the giant animals, but also the Glyceon aliens. Like we didn't really talk about them earlier, but
Oh yeah. Oh gosh,
that's one
they
of my
became
favorite.
one of my favorite things to draw.
Yeah, because I think when we came up with the idea, it was really not. I didn't have much direction. I think I was just like, oh, they're just aliens, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And but we knew we wanted it to be comedic. We wanted to just have fun and have it be a little silly. So just the idea of them being these little tentacle blobs, but then wearing suits or ties, like so it sort of like kind of looks like classic NASA. But they're just aliens. Like that's I don't know. I absolutely love that, and it's one of my favorite visuals. It's one of my favorite running gags in the whole comic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, I made all the decisions pretty much based on what would look funny.
Yeah.
I kind of worked backward a little bit from 7 because I designed 7 to be like dumpy and familiar to kids. And then decided like, okay, who would design that kind of form?
Right.
And maybe they look like that too. But
right.
I tried to bring in a little bit more of their like not specifically genderlessness, but just like formlessness.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we decided they didn't understand human genders anyway.
Right.
And so I wanted to take that a little bit farther in that they are just blobs, and you can even see them like just sticking to the sides of their walls.
Yeah.
Like they don't have any chairs in front of their screens. They just kind of sit there and they can do that.
Because they don't have spines. They don't have to sit or stand. They just are.
Yep.
Yeah, but that makes sense too. About like you were saying, almost backwards engineering their design based off of the design of 7, because 7 was another one where I don't think there was a lot of strong direction. Where I think when we came up with it, was just like, it should just look like a little like a robot. But something for kids, but it's an alien space robot, so it doesn't have to look like a person. It can be a little, it's a comic book. It can be a little weird and abstract or whatever.
Yeah.
So I liked, the wiggly arms and legs for 7, and then that makes sense of like, well, what kind of being would design something like that? Because if if human beings were making a robot, they always look like human beings.
Right.
So, yeah, that makes sense that they tried to make something that is formless, but also it's a robot, so it has like a casing and a steel shell, but it's still got the wiggly arms and legs. So it worked really well.
And the arms and legs are super flexible, so like whatever you need to do in the field, like they can do it.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, awesome.
You give me such good material to work with. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like or consider subscribing for more. My webcomic is free to read at recklastcomic.com, but if you'd like to support me, you can get cool perks on my Patreon like monthly wallpapers and Discord access. Get that at patreon.com/Project Shiro Studios. Links to everything are in the doobly-doo. Have a great day, great night, great whatever, and I'll see you next time.